right, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us on KTN Prime. I'm Linda Oguto, sign language interpreter there. At the bottom end of your screen is William Sila. Before we get right into this, let's take a look at the top stories tonight.
The negotiations which was conducted by the President of the Society have completely failed. Nothing substantive, my lord, was put on the table for the respondent to look into.
Supreme divide. Mediation to continue as parties fail to agree over Awal and Tunoi retirement.
Sovereignty in the Republic of Kenya is based on the people of Kenya.
Orengo to lead court dialogue team, but Jubilee asks court, what dialogue? Caught in between. Funeral mass for victims of shooting in Kisumu and Siaya.
Watu wamechanganyika kwa sababu hata saa hii mimi nitaenda kuoa kuchukua mwanamke kwa Borana, achukua kwa Turkana.
And too few and scattered. The story of Kenya's endangered El Molo tribe. To the program, let's begin with the elusive solution in the corridors of justice. And the Kenyan Supreme Court has been plunged into a potential crisis after mediation talks failed between Deputy Chief Justice Kalpana Rawal, suspended Judge Philip Tunoi, and the Judicial Service Commission in the retirement age dispute. The two judges are opposing their retirement at 70 years. And as KTN's Murimi Mwangi now reports, the last hope of resolving the dispute out of court now lies in a meeting to be held tomorrow between the JSC and Law Society of Kenya.
It was the first sitting of the five-judge bench to hear the retirement age dispute involving 70-year-old Deputy Chief Justice Kalpana Rawal and suspended Supreme Court Judge, the 72-year-old Philip Tunoi. The two are challenging their retirement at 70 years. But after sitting for only an hour, the court adjourned for the better part of the day. This was to give dialogue a chance in the mediation process, spearheaded by the Law Society of Kenya.
If we give this process, mediation, a bit of chance, there is a likelihood that perhaps we can resolve all the issues that are on the Lord.
The president of the Law Society, Mr. Okello, went to see my client, and my client is agreeable.
Some of them are suggesting mediation as a way to ensure that Justice Rawal does not remain Deputy Chief Justice and that she walks out. That's why they're suggesting mediation.
But as the court resumed in the afternoon, it was clear that there was still no solution in sight to the deadlock which has now threatened to cause a total paralysis of the country's top court.
The negotiations which was conducted by the President of the Society have completely failed. Nothing substantive, my lord, was put on the table for the respondent to look into. Our instructions, my lords and my ladies, that we proceed with this application.
We're just wasting time. Mr. Mwite and Mr. Ahmed have made a position very clear of what they plan to stand for. They want the cases to go on.
I'm a party from the High Court. I've come the whole way to the Supreme Court. Then an LSK which comes in this morning locks me out of the proceedings by talking to other parties. It's not acceptable.
But in a final attempt to reach a middle ground, LSK will on Friday meet the 12 members of the JSC, among them Chief Justice Willy Mutunga and Supreme Court Judge Smokin Wanjala. If the sitting does not broker any out-of-court deal, then the dispute will have to be heard and resolved by the Supreme Court starting Monday next week.
Parties cannot be stopped from talking. I think that is the spirit of Article 159.
That just means there's some untidiness. That we should have judges sitting, hearing a matter in of the court, And then the same judges again go and retire and meet some of the parties to negotiate. There's some untightness.
We'll give the president of the Law Society a chance to meet the JSC. I convene the JSC, so you can meet the JSC tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. 2:30 p.m. We resume on Monday at 2:30 to either receive a settlement or to hear the applications.
Now, with all advocates sticking to their hardline positions, then that meeting between the Law Society of Kenya and the Judicial Service Commission is the only remaining shred of hope to the resolution of the retirement age stalemate that is now threatening to cause a total paralysis of the Supreme Court. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News in Nairobi.
Let's see how that goes tomorrow. From the Kenyan Supreme Court, let's go to the International Criminal Court, which has today rejected a request by Kenyan Deputy President William Ruto to have the office of the prosecutor investigated. Ruto's legal counsel had petitioned the court to order investigations into information received by the defense in the course of the trial against Ruto. Ruto's team had argued they believed that several witnesses or ICC staff members may have committed offenses against the administration of justice. The suspected offenses include giving false testimony, presenting false evidence, and corruptly influencing a witness. In its decision rejecting the request, Trial Chamber 5A said it vacated all the charges and discharged both Ruto and Joshua Sang, and considered that it would be inappropriate to preside over Ruto's new petition. The chamber, however, suggests that if Ruto wants the office of the prosecutor investigated over its conduct, they can go all the way back to the pre-trial chamber and start afresh. Right, let's bring you back into the country now and focus on the back and forth on IEBC reforms. And the Kenyan Opposition Coalition CORD has unveiled the names of the 5 members and 2 joint secretaries that would represent CORD in case of any possible dialogue on reforming the Electoral Commission. The team, which will be led by Senators James Orengo and Johnston Muthama, will now be waiting for the Jubilee side to respond, that is, if the president changes his mind over the dialogue push. But as Chris now reports, the Jubilee coalition has insisted that any dialogue must be conducted within the confines of Parliament.
Just as the opposition CORD leadership had promised Kenyans during the 53rd Madaraka Day celebrations at Uhuru Park grounds, they have released the names of 7 members who will represent them during the dialogue process with the Jubilee coalition on attaining the necessary electoral reforms. Those who were appointed by CORD include Siaya Senator James Orengo, his Machakos counterpart Johnston Muthama, MPs Eseli Simiu from Tongaren, Mombasa Women Rep Mishi Mboko, and Suna East MP Junet Mohamed. The secretaries of the dialogue team will be lawyer Paul Mwangi and Grace Katasi. And after agreeing on the list, CORD co-principal Raila Odinga, accompanied by ODM deputy party leader and Mombasa Governor Hassan Joho, flew to Kisumu, where they joined the Kisumu residents for a requiem mass for the 3 people who were allegedly shot dead by the police during anti-IEBC protest in Kisumu and Siaya counties. And here the tone was not any different from that of Wednesday.
Sasa unasema tukubaliane mapema na hii si vitisho. Hatuweki kama sharti. Tunataka tu manake muda na yoyoma. Tuambie Jubilee waache mambo ya mchezo ya paka na panya, wateue timu yao waanze mazungumzo na sisi.
The opposition put the Jubilee coalition on notice that time was running out and that come Monday they will be back to the streets if they fail to nominate their dialogue team by Friday.
Katika fungu ya moja kwanza, Article 1 of the Constitution, ambayo inasema that the sovereignty in the Republic of Kenya is based on the people of Kenya.
But given that the opposition has already dismissed any dialogue within the precincts of Parliament, then the process initiated by at least 40 MPs from both sides of the political divide in a bid to seek a bipartisan approach stands in limbo, since the members depend on their principles for dialogue. The members met Thursday morning at Serena Hotel, but nothing tangible was agreed upon.
We must be a nation that follows the rule of law. Na mimi sina mashindano na mtu yeyote. Hata jana mliona nilialika wenzetu nikawaambia tuendeni ya furaha, hii madaraka ni yetu sisi zote, sijui ni kwa nini hawakuja, lakini mimi niliwaalika. Wameona labda waende wafanye yao kwingine.
Already the opposition has vowed not to participate in the coming general election with the current IEBC commissioners unless they are replaced. Chris Dairo, KTN News.
Right, so you've listened to the two leaders. CORD leader Raila Odinga is on record saying IEBC reforms are a must. He's been calling for dialogue with the Jubilee administration. President Uhuru Kenyatta, on the other hand, has insisted that those discussions and whatever solution it will be sought must be within the confines of the law. And indeed, there are some Jubilee leaders as well who are saying it must be within the confines of Parliament, back and forth, lots of it as well. So tonight on KTN Prime, on our big question, you've listened to the two leaders and the reasons why A, one wants reforms, and B, the other one says for us to have reforms, they must be within the confines of Parliament. Who do you think, between Raila and Uhuru, is the stumbling block in the IEBC stalemate? Who is the stumbling block in the IEBC stalemate? Do you think it is former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, or do you think it is President Uhuru Kenyatta? Let us know. Tweet us at KTN News, at KTN Kenya. Tweet me directly as well at Lindo Guto. I'll be sampling your views as we go on with this bulletin. So elsewhere, CORD supporters turned up in large numbers in Kisumu to remember the 3 people killed during protests against the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission in Siaya and Kisumu. The CORD leaders accused police of using excessive force against innocent Kenyans. Rashid Ronald was at Kirembe grounds in Kisumu, the venue for that requiem mass. Take a look.
Coffins bearing the remains of the 3 victims killed by police in last Monday's anti-IEBC demonstrations in Kisumu and Siaya were paraded at Kirembe grounds in Kisumu. Even those who were shot and injured by police in Migori, Homa Bay, Kisumu and Siaya were here too.
Action must be taken, and that's the justice I'm talking about. Justice must be done.
It was a requiem mass that will later turn political if what came out of many speakers is anything to go by. That notwithstanding, they were united in taking a swipe at the police, claiming the amount of force that police used cannot be justified at all.
The Constitution allows demonstrations and picketing. Kwa hivyo hii vile vile kupitia kwa katiba, hatujavunja katiba.
My brother Isaac Hassan, the commissioners wenzako, hii damu imeenda kwa sababu yako, na mimi nina habari kwamba nyinyi wenyewe mnasema ati mko tayari kwenda, lakini mnaangalia mambo ya marupurupu yenu. Let me tell you, no amount of money can buy a life. Yes. Hakuna pesa yoyote ambayo utakuwa nayo inaweza kununua maisha ya Kenya.
Speaker after speaker maintained that the killings have just but strengthened their resolve to kick out the IEBC officials, and that come Monday, they'll be back on the streets if the government does not agree to dialogue.
Yes. All of us. Yes. Without failure. Yes. We are going to IEBC. IEBC must go. IEBC must go. IEBC must go.
And so come Monday, and Kenyans could be treated to another sad episode if nothing happens. Rashid Ronald, KTN News, Kirembe, in the county of Kisumu.
A Mombasa court has today released 43 men who are accused of being members of the Mombasa Republican Council. The 43 who were arrested in 2014 in Kilifi were released after Mombasa senior resident magistrate Irene Ruguru said that the prosecution had failed to provide enough evidence to sustain their conviction. She said since they were arrested, no witnesses had been arraigned to testify against them. The 43 were arrested for stepping up the activities of the movement. Authorities say this involved attacks on police and polling stations and killing security personnel and individuals perceived to be non-natives. They had also been accused of being members of the group that seeks the independence of the coastal region from Kenya. The MRC group had accused the government of decades of social and economic marginalization of the coastal region. Although activities of the group have subsided since the crackdown, police and officials say they are keeping up close surveillance as Kenya nears a general election in 2017. Let's still stay at the coast and focus still on security at the coast. And the day after authorities announced the killing of the mastermind of the deadly Garissa University attack, Mohamed Kuno, security chiefs at the coast reiterated that the Boni Forest operation will continue. Regional coordinator Nelson Marwa has said security had been enhanced at areas considered hotspots in Lamu County in order to deal with the latest threats and ultimately flush out Al-Shabaab militants. KTN's Francis Ontomwa reports. Indeed, that we try to get you that story that focuses on Mpeketoni security meeting. That is a meeting that was held today, focusing on the security of the residents on the ground. Regional coordinator Nelson Marwa saying security has been enhanced in the areas considered hotspots in Lamu County. We're still working on that story. Francis Ontomwa attended that particular meeting. I'll give you details of the meeting and why it's very important, not just for residents of Mpeketoni, but of course the entire coastal region, looking at the fight against terror in the country. Right, so there was heated exchange between lawyer Fred Ngatia and the chairperson of the tribunal investigating bribery allegations against suspended Supreme Court Judge Philip Tunoi. This was over a controversial National Intelligence Service report that was allegedly formed the basis of the establishment of the tribunal. Chairperson Sharad Rao said the tribunal had received firm instructions from the intelligence service that all its communication to the judiciary on the matter was classified. Patrick Amimo now has more.
On Tuesday, lawyer Fred Ngatia had questioned the authenticity of a national intelligence report, which he says was neither signed nor dated, besides not being on an official letterhead. The NIS report was hand-delivered to Judiciary Ombudsman Kennedy Bidali as he was probing bribery allegations against Justice Tunoi. Come Thursday, Fred Ngatia drew the battle line.
We appeared before JSC. They had the report with them, according to the chronology. They withheld it from the judge. We were not given an opportunity to comment, yet it features throughout the report. Actually, it appears to be the evidence they relied upon.
The issue that had arisen was the authenticity of a document that the witness sought to rely on as a report from the National Intelligence Service.
Okay, that's a matter we don't want at this stage to be discussed.
I am guided, Mr. Chairman.
We said that when he finishes his examination in chief and before you cross-examine, okay, we'll deal with this issue.
The proceedings continued with Judiciary Ombudsman saying Geoffrey Kiplagat, who has accused Justice Tunoi of receiving 200 million shillings bribe, expected to get 30 million shillings from the spoils.
I saw that text that Geoffrey says he sent to the judge. It was a text more or less saying that, I quote, I am now going to go public with whatever has transpired. When I make my claim, I get people trailing me and threatening me. So this has to stop. End of quote. It was a text basically translated to that effect.
Before lawyer Ngatia could start cross-examining Bidali, the tribunal disclosed that it had been blocked from discussing the intelligence service report.
We are told that there is a letter from the National Intelligence, but the National Intelligence wanted us to classify some of the letters which have been exchanged between them and the Chief Justice, And this particular letter we have been asked not to actually put on record. So therefore our position is that we don't want it to be referred to at all.
Sir, I am getting difficulties with the position you have taken as the chairman. With tremendous respect, it is not fair that you obstruct this process. There must be a position NIS must take in law. Is this their report, yes or not?
Our problem is that we cannot say what position the NIS is taking when the NIS is not prepared to allow that letter to be produced.
Allow
so
me
on
to
what
go to,
basis?
Allow me to go to the High Court and apply for a summon for NIS to come and say that.
To ease rising temperatures, the tribunal took a 30-minute break to allow brainstorming over the controversial report. And this was the verdict.
There is a response. The difficulty in tendering it now is that it is a classified document and I cannot then present it to the tribunal, and I am in the process of requesting the Director General to declassify the document.
You cannot refer to the contents.
That is correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So you will understand my position, Mr. Ngatia. It's not a position of trying to obstruct. The position then is, are you able to proceed on your cross-examination, leaving that aspect out with the rest of it?
No, sir. I will not want to start without knowing whether this is a report from NIS or this is a report from elsewhere.
Should the National Intelligence Service maintain that its report is classified by Tuesday and lawyer Fred Ngatia stick to his guns, then we might witness delays in these tribunal sittings as the matter goes to the High Court. Patrick Amimo, KTN News, Nairobi.
You're watching KTN News. Thank you for staying with us. Let's take a break, but before we get there, let's remind you of a big question tonight. We're focusing on calls for IEBC reforms, and tonight we're asking you, who between the two leaders do you think is the stumbling block in the IEBC stalemate? Do you think it is the CORD leader Raila Odinga or President Uhuru Kenyatta? You've listened into some of the sentiments in the last couple of weeks on the issue on IEBC reforms, and of course today we know that CORD has come up with a team that will spearhead that talks on their behalf. We're yet to hear from the Jubilee administration. So who between Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta do you think is the stumbling block in IEBC stalemate? Let us know what you think. Tweet us at KTN News, tweet us at KTN Kenya as well. You can tweet me directly as well at Lindo Gutu. I'll be sampling your views as we go on with this bulletin. At Kimaru Kraya says, I think all negotiations should be done through Parliament and not street talk. Peter says IEBC is a constitutional issue and all must follow the law. Karugu Muredi says Raila wants to bully the constitution and the government using youth. Let's see how some of you will poll in the next couple of minutes. I'm seeing lots of them as well. Thank you for writing in, for participating, and indeed being part of KTN Prime for now. Let's take a break before we focus on that virus that is giving everyone a headache in the coastal region. Couple of days, weeks actually, the Chikungunya virus that has been wreaking havoc in Mandera County threatens to spin out of control. The disease, which has affected half the health workforce in the county, spares none. The health sector was already grappling with a cholera outbreak in the same region, and now Chikungunya. The county is overwhelmed. Just what is this viral epidemic? Let's uncover it in the coming story prepared by Dr. Mercy Korir for us.
Hussein Salah's cautious walk tells it all. His posture speaks of a man whose health has seen better days. Each movement ordinary to you and I causes him unbearable pain. He narrates to us what he has been going through.
Kulala wezi, kutembea wezi, kukula wezi, mkojo unabebwa na basin. Sasa mimi siku 4 siona choo, mimi nabeba mkojo wangu nabebwa, leo ndo nimesembewa usilale, tembea ndo utabata nafuu kidogo.
He is one of the many residents of Mandera who have been affected by the Chikungunya. Residents here have a terminology for it, one not so far from the Kimakonde people's definition of Chikungunya.
Kisomali inamaanisha just some breakdown of the system, the joints. The joints feel like shrinking. They shrink, most of the joints, they shrink as you feel this disease.
Chikungunya is a viral infection spread by mosquitoes of the Aedes species. It was first described during the outbreak in southern Tanzania in 1952. It is no new disease in Kenya, being the third commonest after dengue and Rift Valley fevers in their class of viruses.
We had another outbreak of chikungunya in Kenya
after that lull in 2004 in Lamu, and it affected Lamu and Kilifi and parts of Mombasa.
The infection has a short incubation period of between 4 to 8 days. Those infected will experience an abrupt onset of fever, debilitating joint pains, which may be prolonged even for weeks, rash, muscle pains, headache, nausea, and fatigue. Specific laboratory tests are required to confirm the diagnosis.
We have diagnostics for detecting whether somebody is having antibodies to the virus. They've been infected and they are responding by generating, eliciting antibody response. So we look for the antibodies in the blood, and we also look for the actual virus.
Though not fatal, no specific antiviral drug treatment exists for this disease. Treatment is directed at relieving the symptoms, including the joint pains, using optimal pain medication and fluids.
There is really no antidote to the virus. We have no vaccine for the virus, and in fact, we have no vaccines for many of these viruses.
The World Health Organization warns of these emerging and re-emerging viral diseases that pose a threat to public health in this century. What then do we need to do to prevent or control this infection?
People are advised to make sure they don't create breeding places for mosquitoes.
In the background of a health system that is often plagued by inadequate funding and limited personnel, Kenyans wait to see the actions that the relevant government agencies will take to contain not only chikungunya, but other highly infectious and contagious diseases. Nicholas Omboa, KTN News.
So that's a story that has been voiced by Nicholas Omboa, but of course prepared by Dr. Mercy Korir. Yep, we have an in-house doctor. On the shores of Lake Turkana in Kenya's Marsabit County, a small community is trying to fight the odds and prosper in the best way it can. According to historians, there are very few remaining people from the El Molo tribe. And as Carol Nderi reports, the few remaining El Molo people are trying to catch up with modernity. For example, children who are traditionally expected to start fishing by the age of 13 are now being sent to school instead. Take a look.
On the shores of Lake Turkana is a community that is struggling to fight possible extinction. To salvage an ancestry that is its heritage, the El Molo tribe is one that is fighting to claim its place in Kenya. Caught up between modernity and tradition, the El Molo are a people who are trying to find new means of sustenance by embracing different ways of doing things. They have been fishermen since time immemorial, but competition for fish in Lake Turkana has forced them to find alternative means.
Samaki siku hizi imeanza kupotea kwa sababu ya wingi ya watu kufua bahari.
El Molo saa hii kama kuna 1,500 bana, tafika 1,000. Bila sasa ile watoto wengine. Sisi hapana hesabu ile watoto wengine kutoka huko hao utakuja kukuta Turkana hapa. Turkana ni jirani tu. Siku ile anaama na watoto yake.
It is believed that very few pure El Molo people exist. Alexander Lenapir says intermarriage is now a common aspect of life for the El Molo.
Ndio sasa nyinyi mnasema bado 99 lakini siku hizi 99. Watu wamechanganyika kwa sababu hata saa hii mimi taenda kuoa kuchukua mwanamke kwa Borana. Achukua kwa Turkana.
Traditionally, once an El Molo child attains the age of 13, he can go out fishing in the lake. But with a chance at education, the children here also stand a chance in improving their future.
Jamii yetu pia inachaguliwa kama sahi mwalimu, tuko na walimu kama El Molo. Tuko na chief pia El Molo, tumesoma zote na tumechaguliwa pia na serikali. Hatuna kansela, hatuna MP.
Well, a very good evening and welcome to KTN Business. You're just in time to catch up with the latest
on what's been happening in the world of business. My name is Abi Agina. The Nairobi Securities Exchange has today inched one step closer to the launch of a derivatives market after over 3,000 shareholders approved the creation of 162.5 million new shares at the company's 62nd annual general meeting. And as KTN's Joy Doreen Bureau reports, the launch of a derivatives market will see the NSE become only the second bourse to do so in Africa.
Nairobi Securities Exchange shareholders will enjoy a 49-cents dividend per share and a bonus issue at the ratio of 1:3 following overwhelming approval at the 62nd annual general meeting. Shareholders also resolved to raise company share capital to 1.5 billion in order to meet the capital threshold requirement for a derivatives market.
It's not as if it has stalled, it's still in progress, but the derivatives market, I would have wanted it launched before I left, but it is just about to be launched.
The NSE was to launch the derivatives market towards the end of 2015 before it was postponed to March this year and then June and now towards the end of 2016.
Realizing that as a new market, we need to have stronger public education, a stronger education to our trading participants, a more thorough engagement with regulators, we had to sort of extend certain timelines.
The NSE had proposed to the Capital Markets Authority to approve charges between 15 and 25 shillings per derivative contract in order to tap into what is a lucrative derivatives market.
We are very close. We are doing a lot of simulations at the background so that by the time we come to market, it's a very easy product to understand.
Should the Nairobi Securities Exchange launch the derivatives market, it will be second after the Johannesburg Securities Exchange to do so in Africa. The NSE is the fifth largest market across the continent. Joy Doreen Bira, KTN News.
And thanks, Joy. Well, the National World Environment Day 2016 will be celebrated on Sunday, the 5th of June 2016. This is an annual event that has been celebrated every year since 1973 and is aimed at raising global awareness on the importance of a safe, healthy and green environment. This year's theme, as announced by UNEP, is Fight Against Illegal Trade in Wildlife.
The National Environment Management Authority works with lead agencies. Our law, Environment Management and Coordination Act, is a framework law, and within it we work with lead agencies like Kenya Wildlife Service, who have a law on wildlife. This year, as you say, the president banned stockpiles of ivory, which was good indication about what our intentions are as a country. So nationally, we are working together with the lead agency, KWS, and that's why we've gone to Nanyuki. Laikipia is one of the areas where wildlife is housed. We have lots of wildlife outside conservation areas. If you look at internationally, the event is being hosted by Angola, which Angola is trying to do what Kenya has done in the last decade to come out of the doldrums with regard to elephant conservation. So this is the time they are doing that. So UNEP has taken the action there to actually assist them to recover their elephant herds. That Kenya has done, and therefore both Kenya and internationally and nationally, the theme is very appropriate.
Professor Geoffrey Wahungu there, the Director General of the National Environmental Management Authority, speaking about the upcoming World Environment Day. Well, let's shift attention and talk matters energy now. Kenya's quest to harvest cheap power from wind is slowly but surely taking shape as the Lake Turkana Wind Power Company runs ahead of schedule in setting up wind turbines for the 310 megawatt plant. The company aims to be up and running by July next year, with phase 1 of the project expected to inject the first 90 megawatts of wind power into the national grid by September this year. Our reporter Philip Kitani visited the site and brings us the following report.
Located in Sarima village 10 kilometers from the shores of Lake Turkana, is home to the most ambitious infrastructure development project carried out in northern Kenya since independence. On arrival, we are welcomed by the General Manager Philip Lefferink, who gave us a tour of the site.
We are building 365 turbines, V52, 850 kilowatts, which in the end will produce about 17 to 18% of Kenya's total generation capacity.
The Lake Turkana wind power project is the single largest private investment in Kenya's history. The wind farm covers 40,000 acres or 162 square kilometers. At the moment, 44 turbines are already up.
We are a little bit ahead of schedule as we speak today, and we are looking to be ready for the first dispatch of power towards the last quarter of 2016.
When complete, the 70 billion shillings wind farm project aims at providing 310 megawatts of reliable low-cost wind power to Kenya's national grid, equivalent to approximately 18% of the country's current installed electricity generating capacity.
Once the project is fully online, we have 310 megawatts installed. We are producing power which is sufficient to feed power to about 1 million Kenyan households.
The power produced will be bought by a fixed price by the Kenya Power over a 20-year period in accordance to the power purchase agreement with the latter.
And we have looked at the wind resource, analyzed it for many years, and we came to the conclusion that in the configuration as we have it today, on the scale we have it today, that a project benefiting the country and also benefiting the investors, of course, could be realized.
Electricity from the Marsabit-based wind farm will cost 8 shillings and 6 cents per unit, or half that of the diesel generators. The full 110 megawatts capacity of the power generation project, to be delivered by 365 wind turbines, is expected to be in place by June 2017.
The challenge we primarily see today during construction is exactly the benefit we are looking for: strong winds. During construction, that is actually quite challenging. We need to lift big pieces quite high. That actually sometimes is challenging with the strong winds we have on this site.
Upon its completion in 2017, Google will acquire Vesta's 12.5% stake in Africa's largest wind park. Google investment is a leading example of companies investing in wind energy globally to achieve attractive financial returns and scale development of renewable energy. The Lake Turkana wind power project is expected to have 365 wind turbines, and with 44 already up, the project owners are promising that the remaining 321 will be up and running by July next year. Philip Kitan, KTN News.
Indeed, some good news there, hoping that the power costs will come down. Well, I want to wrap up KTN Business with leaving you with the day's financial report. My name is Abegina. Thank you for your valued company.
Financial Markets, in association with Enwell.
Welcome back. Let's look at sports now. Just days after bagging the Safaricom Deaf Marathon title in Bomet, Rebecca Matiko earned herself a ticket to the World Deaf Athletics Championships in Bulgaria. Matiko won the 1500 meters women's title at the ongoing Safaricom National Trials at the Kasarani Stadium. She clocked a time of 5 minutes 27 seconds ahead of Lorraine Nganga and Masi Tanui respectively. Staying with the women's races, Justa Kwamesa clocked 19 minutes 46 seconds to win the women's 5,000 meters race and book a world ticket. So Nandi County held its inaugural half-marathon race in March this year with hopes of building a stadium in the once vibrant county. The county has in recent times suffered a decrease in the number of athletes training in Kapsabet region, with Iten the most preferred training destination. Welcome
to Nandi County, the source of champions. The words that welcome you to Nandi County. The county derived the source of champions label from the fact that a large number of Kenya's first renowned athletes like Kipchoge Keino hail from the county. As well. The likes of Janet Chepkosgei, Eliud Kipchoge, among other Nandi-born athletes, have shifted their training base to other areas like Kaptagat, Eldoret and Iten. 1992 Barcelona Olympic silver medalist in the 3,000 meter steeplechase race, Patrick Sang, who is now the Nandi County Minister for Sports, hopes to revive the county as an athletics training hub.
I think this is our time to share with the rest of the world what we are made of as a county. So far, the report card coming back to us is that we have one of the best, if not the best, places for distance training in the world.
The Nandi tea plantations have overshadowed the county's ability to churn out world beaters. This year, however, seems like a new beginning. The Italian athletics team chose the county as their training base ahead of the Rio Olympics.
Because here I can really train so good, and so it's a good opportunity to be here with the other guys of Italian team.
Valeria Straneo is the 2013 world silver medalist in the marathon race won by Edna Kiplagat. She's part of the Italian team that had the privilege of training in what she describes as a perfect recipe for a world beater.
I think it's a really tough course and a really tough road, and it's so hard and difficult for me because I restart from many months that I was stopped. And I think that all the work that I do here will bring a lot of skills.
Training in Nandi County for the first time, 2014 European Marathon champion Daniel Meucci believes the benefits from the Nandi County terrain as well as the fresh air will be in display as he takes on future races.
You improve your muscle, improve your mind to heart.
Massimo Magnani, the Italian Athletics Federation Technical Director, chose to train in Kenya and specifically Iten, despite the recent negative headlines on the rise of doping amongst Kenyan athletes.
It trusts completely what the Kenyan athletes are doing in the world. Probably, like in Italy, like in other parts of the world, there are some person, but they are some individual, they are not making correct.
Nandi County's popularity in quality tea production for local consumption as well as for exports has overshadowed the fact that it's an area with perfect conditions for athletes training. However, the presence of the Italian team in Kapsabet is expected to open Kapsabet as well as the larger Nandi County and bring it to par with areas like Iten and Kaptagat. Lynn Washira, KTN.
All right, so that's it for sports. Thank you so much for watching. Great, so that is how we wrap up KTN Prime. Thank you so much for staying with us. Let's remind you of a big question just before we wrap this up. And we're focusing on that stalemate on IEBC, whether or not the commissioners need to go home. So we are asking between the two leaders, Raila Odinga and, of course, President Uhuru Kenyatta, who do you think is the stumbling block in that particular stalemate? Lots of feedback. Lazarus Momo says, if Uhuru was for dialogue, we could be midway reconstituting IEBC. He is the stumbling block. Aaron Kim says, let's blame it on Raila. No one is above the law. Ben Muroki asks, do you really have to dialogue on how to remove constitutionally appointed IEBC commissioners? Finally, Wahome Gyan says, Raila is not sincere with the dialogue debate. Those are just some of your feedback on our big question tonight on who between the two leaders you think is the stumbling block on IEBC stalemate. Thank you for watching KTN Prime. Have a good night. Of course, tomorrow you'll have Betty Kialo with Friday Briefing.